Hey there, I'm Dominic St-Pierre and you're listening to Go Podcast. Today I'm joined by Ramesh Sringeri and we talk about gatekeeping and how to teach programming to young people. Hello Gophers! So I have a guest this week. I'm joined by Ramesh Sringeri. I hope I said the name correctly, otherwise you can correct me, it's all fine. So thank you very much for accepting this invitation.
Dominic, thank you so much. You got it right. I mean, that was very good pronunciation of the last name. I mean, it's a difficult last name. It's not common, so I understand. Appreciate it.
It is.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about yourself? Can you introduce yourself, a little bit of your background, and how you came up to program in Go at some point in your career? I think.
Yes. Yeah. So I've been a software developer for quite some time. Basically, let's say that I know what Visual Into Dev is, and I've also written some VB6 programs. So that's how long I've been in this space. Mostly self-taught, reading books and blogs and listening to podcasts and things like that. And one of the things to note is I've come through a lot of gatekeeping in this space, and that is something that I want to touch upon. And I also volunteer to run a local girls who code club, and that experience, and also graduating from I being the volunteer and the mentor for the club to getting my daughter and her friends to run the club, that has shown me a lot of insights into how people learn, and also what really clicks with people, and especially the middle school kids. And that is something that I want to touch upon as well. So basically, most of my experience has been in the .NET world. And also on the Microsoft platforms. So I started writing programs in VB6 and Microsoft platform basically, and then got introduced to .NET 1.0 and all the way up until .NET 6 and 7-ish about 2.5 years ago, when I came upon a chance opportunity with my present employer, Particle Health. Right now, I work as a senior software engineer at Particle Health. Particle Health is a startup, and our mission at Particle Health, what it is we unlock the power of medical records. We hope to do that in an intelligent platform, and the idea here is to put the health focus back on the patient. So that's a tall thing. We believe we have a very unique solution that enables this. Got quite a few customers, and then I really like working here. So what happened is most of my work experience has also been in the healthcare space. So this is a domain that I really love to work in. And I subscribe to a bunch of healthcare newsletters, and one of them had a showcase on Particle Health. And I looked at their website, I looked at what they had offered, and just on a whim, I wasn't actually looking or anything. On a whim, I sent in my resume, and one thing led to the other, and I landed at Particle. And one of the main reasons I wanted to join Particle was Particle's core APIs are built using Golang, and it is on the GCP platform. I had no previous experience on GCP, no previous experience writing Go. The only experience I had anything to do with Go was listening to Go Time FM on the Changelog podcast. So that's when I sent in my resume, and because it was Golang, also in the healthcare space, this was my dream offer, and then I just took it up. That's how I landed where I am, and that's how I've been programming in Go for almost 2.5 years now. Not an expert, still a noob.
That is so interesting. Your background is very, very similar to me, and there's a lot to expand and extract from what you just said. But let's start with VB6 because, wow, this is exactly where I started as well. And I don't know if you remember that, but how was it called? So it was the DED, the data environment something. I don't recall that exactly, but it was kind of supposed to help with all the data manipulation from the database and whatnot, modeling and whatnot.
Correct. So if you remember, there was another tool called Power Builder by Sybase.
I don't know that one, to be frank, no.
Okay, so Power Builder was the one who brought the data manipulation to fore. Power Builders, it was from this company called Sybase, which is the precursor to today's SQL Server. So Sybase put out Power Builder as a rapid application development tool. This is, I think, around the time when VB6 also was trying to do something. And they had this concept called a data window. So you can hook up almost like a grid to a data source, and you write SQL, and then you can do all kinds of manipulations. And this accelerated it was really rapid application development. And then Microsoft kind of built upon that idea and introduced the concept that you were talking about. I believe it's called DDE, Dynamic Data Exchange, or something like that.
Yeah, it's possible. I just recall that it was kind of interesting until it was not.
Yeah, so very similar concept. Yes. Yeah. I know. Yes.
Yeah, I remember the first production VB6 application that I needed to deploy. We failed to build a distributable, package and whatnot. So we had at some point needed to install VB6 on all the employees' machine because we were just not able. And I was extremely junior at that time, so, very, very, and even the most senior people that were there, we just failed at that. And the next morning, the employees came to work and they had a shortcut on their desktop, which was basically booting up Visual Basics and starting the application in debug mode directly. It was crazy.
Yeah, those were the days.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's very interesting. So again, healthcare. Wow, this is this seems to be a huge market, or domain, like you said. I'm coming from a financial background, so it's very, very similar to you. I saw the upcoming of .NET at the very, very beginning. I think it was 2002 maybe that I started with. I think it was the beta one. You did something that I did not, though. You stayed with them after they introduced the .NET Core. I left at the good old .NET 4.5 myself, or 4.6. Yeah. At that time, I said, oh, you know what? I think I want to discover what else exists outside of the Microsoft environment and whatnot. But yes, I still miss it sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. .NET, yes, like I said, I stayed for quite a while, and then a lot of things changed in .NET Core, and the inspiration was to a little bit Ruby on Rails, and then mostly Node.js ecosystem.
Absolutely. So yes, you mentioned a couple of names. Scott and Solomon for sure. So I'm from the time where I remember that Rob Connery at some point and Phil Hack joined Microsoft at some point, and I was like, that to me was a good time when the MVC pattern emerged from the good old web form in .NET. So that was refreshing to get rid of the view state. I don't know if you recall that.
Oh,
but
yes.
Yeah.
Those were some of the tricks that you employed, right? You do file view source and look at the giant view state and then figure out how to reduce that. And that spawned a lot of libraries and things like that, and hacks. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It was interesting. So how was your transit? Well, how was your transition to Go, actually? Because that's still a pretty big change. Just thinking about the standard library, if we compare the standard lib of Go compared to the .NET framework, this is a huge difference.
Yes, it is. So initially it was a little bit, jarring, because you had to unlearn so many things. So if you're within the Microsoft bubble, right, especially when you're using Visual Studio, which I still believe is the best IDE, It's got tons of things and so many crutches, and you can do pretty much anything. And then most of the times you start with file new, and you got a structure available for you to start building whatever you want. Is it WinForms or web application, WCF, and all these things, right? Acronyms. But coming to Go, you had to unlearn all of that. There is no IDE where you can go and do a file new. It's a completely different concept. Yes, there is the main file, and then you got packages, and you got so many things that are different. And then you got these interfaces, right? Interfaces are completely different in Go than what you're used to typically in Java or the .NET space. So those things were really, it took me a little while to grok all of that. And the only reason I was able to persevere is having a support system at work, right? We got a couple very smart people who are experts in Go, and they were tolerant of my .NET isms being introduced in Go, and they would gently nudge me towards, this is the Go way. This is the way. You got to do it this way. And a lot of things make sense, and especially, having a formatter that will make sure your code looks very similar, right? That helps a lot. And the main axiom in the Go is you read a lot than you write, right? So especially when you're in other platforms, you tend to bang out lots of code, right? So those kind of things was really being different, and having a support team actually helped. So the transition was not bad, but it's still not complete, meaning I can't really think in Go.
Yeah, I understand. I can understand that. So you are bringing a lot of pattern from .NET and C# that does not necessarily make idiomatic Go, to be frank. So that is something that I've seen myself when .NET and Java programmers are starting to write Go. This is something that is real. I mean, but it's also, quote unquote, it's normal, because this is the way line of business application are built. So so it's difficult. It's difficult to unlearn. Well, maybe not unlearn, but just make sure that there's another way to do things that is potentially very different. It's not. I don't like to say switching or ditching or things like that when learning a new language. It's just new knowledge that pile up on what you have learned so far. So this is interesting to hear, to be frank.
Right, and the simplicity of the language actually helps, especially if you have background in building stuff, right? And then you are very well versed in the basics of the language, the variables, the loops, and things like that. There are some concepts that you got to bring over, and then you can translate that. But the simplicity, there's only so many keywords, and there's only most of the times one way to do things, right? Versus in .NET, you got while loop, do while loop, for loop, and then all kinds of things. Which one do you use? You're wasting more cycles trying to figure out what language construct than trying to figure out what business problem that I can really solve here. And that really helped. The simplicity of the language definitely helps.
Yeah, I've seen that with more junior developers as well, trying to understand, is this thing exist in the .NET framework? Should I write a function for that, or I should try to find it? While the standard lib in Go is pretty straightforward. The packages are clear and whatnot. Sometimes in the .NET world, you have a lot of namespaces to traverse to find your functions.
That is right. I mean,
but
Visual Studio helps here.
Oh yes, oh yeah, totally. On the other hand, though, they did something very good with all the internationalization, the currencies, and also the dates. I often find myself missing the datetime package from the .NET world, to be frank, in Go.
You're absolutely right. In Go, right, that was something that I still haven't gotten used to it, having a layout, and then suddenly you expect something, but it is completely different, right? Sometimes you get time ranges, and you got to figure out, okay, all I'm trying to do is get a date here. Then you got a civil date and things like that. Date Manipulation is definitely complex, and you know who John Skeet is, right? He maintains a Note a Time or a library that does all kinds of date manipulations in the .NET space. Yeah, so definitely that is something is better in the .NET world, but I understand where Go is also coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, I know John Skeet. Is he not the one with the 1 million point on Stack Overflow or
Oh
something?
yes, yes, that's the guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
surprisingly, his day job is Java, but he's a .NET expert.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not knew that.
Yeah.
So at some point, your employer let you work full time on Go, right? Instead
Yes.
of doing, I guess you were doing some C# and .NET before that at that place.
Not at this place, but before joining my current place, it was all .NET in the previous place of work.
Okay, so they hired you as a full time Go developers then.
Yes,
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
yes. So which is why I said I was really lucky to get a break, and they took a they I don't know, they bet on me that I could deliver something. Yeah. So that was really lucky for me, and yeah.
And when you say gatekeeping, what are you referring exactly? Are you referring to the Go ecosystem per se, or is it the software engineering in general? Can you extract a little bit your thoughts here?
Sure, that's a good question. So gatekeeping. So especially since I've come from a different environment, right? So most of the gatekeeping that I've experienced has been in the regular .NET world, and also before in a different environment as well, meaning some Java programs and other things. Basically, if you go on Stack Overflow and post a question, right? People are trying to discredit you and shout you down than trying to guide you, which is a huge contrast in the Go ecosystem. I haven't experienced any gatekeeping in the Go ecosystem. People like you are always helping people, and also on your podcast you share that your vulnerability as well, right? You're not an expert in Go, you're still learning, and here are different places. That helps. And Matt Boyle, who's podcast and who was on your podcast last episode, right? So he also has created a Twitter space that is very welcoming and encouraging. And Bill Kennedy, of course, the Slack group that is created for Golang, right? That's always welcoming. I posted some stupid questions, and then people are always responding very well. But contrasting that with the .NET space. So when you don't know certain things, if you don't know the insights of the garbage collection and things like that, people used to look down upon me. It's like, you don't even know that. Okay, I don't know that. You got to teach me, or at least point me to the right direction. So that's the gatekeeping that I'm talking about. So here's a real example of gatekeeping, which kind of didn't affect me, but affected my view, and I can say it made me a little angry, right? So a lot of people, a lot of high school kids, they take AP computer science. So that is their introduction to the world of computer science. They hear about how computer science helps you get a good career, how programming is interesting and things like that, and they take AP courses. And unfortunately, what happens is these high schools do not have any good teacher for computer science, and these kids are struggling. They have signed themselves up for an AP class, advanced level, advanced placement, and they are failing. So they post on the local news group, and I tend to help these kids out by saying, okay, what is your issue? And then I guide them. And then these are all very smart kids, right? Very smart kids, but they are not taught programming and computers and concepts in the right way. So contrast that with also what happened is we got a local tech school here, and there are kids who are required to take a programming class, no matter what your major is. Even if you're doing biology, you got to take a computer class. And a lot of these kids were also struggling, and one of the girls that I helped, right, and she was extremely smart. There was an assignment. She had put together a 100-line Java program, and then we worked through that and got it down to about 10, 15 lines. The problem was simple, but because she was going around and round and round. And then I didn't give her the solution. All I did was ask questions, point her, and she built the solution. And by the end of that, she was very feeling good. And you submit that assignment, they have a series of unit tests, and all of those unit tests passed, and she submitted it. And after submission, I was asking my daughter, like, okay, hey, how is this kid doing? I helped her. Is she doing well in computer science? Because she wanted to do the computer science major. And my daughter said, no, she gave up on CS. And I said, why? Why did she give up? Well, she got a B on her assignment. Why did she get a B on her assignment? Everything passed. So this is the insidiousness thing, right? So they got a set of hidden tests that you don't know, but your program could fail. And because though that program failed the hidden test, she got a lower grade. And this discouraged her completely. So this is the gatekeeping that I'm talking about. Very smart kid. All I did was ask questions, and she got a 100-line program down to 10 lines. And she did all the work. I didn't do anything. Okay, I was just guiding her. So this is what I mean by gatekeeping. I mean, why are we so mean? And I linked, there's a picture of Scott Hanselman holding up, this is in a different context, but it says, why so mean? That picture actually resonates. I mean, why are we so mean? Why can't we help kids? I mean, these kids are pretty smart. Anybody who wants to learn, right? They came to this with an intention to learn and do well. I mean, granted, there will be some bad apples. So that's what I meant by gatekeeping.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we have a lot to unpack from this. I will start by reflecting on the gatekeeping on the .NET community. I cannot speak for Java. I've never wrote one line of Java. I cannot, but I kind of hear you about .NET a little bit. I mean, I've seen that. I'm not sure if it's gatekeeping. I don't know. There seems to be people in the .NET community have sometimes difficulties to see, solution that they wouldn't have done that way, for example, and things like that, or if there's any challenges and things like that. It seems to be interesting, and I remember when I started doing Go. Well, first of all, the first thing that happened to me is I stopped visiting Stack Overflow. From one day to another, it was gone in my life.
Yes.
And it was great, to be frank. I mean, I was like, wow. Because, yes, you do have so many problems with the .NET framework.
Right.
Just mastering the beast, it can take like 10 years before knowing it all, or at least a significant part. So I think this is good and bad at some point, because it might cause the community to maybe be tired of hearing the same questions over and over. I don't know. I'm just speculating here.
Right. Yeah. So there's guidelines on how to ask questions and things like that. I understand that your question needs to be, you have to spend some time as well doing the work. I mean, if you just ask simple questions, yes. But sometimes what happens is you spend so much time, you spend almost a couple of days banging in this, and then you're not able to articulate the question, and you post something and immediately it will be downvoted, you'll be shouted down. So...
yeah. Oh, yeah, it's rough.
Right.
For returning to the education part. Yes. I mean, this to me, and I will speak for Canada. I'm a Canadian, and especially in my province in Quebec, the education system, in my opinion, and I've said that a lot of times, and then I've said that in Go Time podcast as an unpopular opinion at some point. It's broken. It's just broken, in my opinion.
Yes.
And it's not the the teachers and whatnot. It's the system in itself, I believe. But it's so big. It's so big to change, and there's a lot of resistance, because this this domain, or this piece of the society is not very ready for changes, but yes, returning to CS and things like that. Yeah, this is sad, and I really want to do an episode with graduate that either did not completed their degrees because X and Y reason. I want to know those reasons. I want to talk with younger people really on this podcast. And I've told that to Matt Boyle on the last episode, but
Yes.
There is something I don't know what it is. There is something I'm hearing a lot of things these days with younger developers. They are unsure if it's a good idea at least to even pursue this path, and I'm a little bit sad about that because I programming to me is a passion, and
Right.
I would like to see younger developers having fun doing that, and I don't believe it is as fun as it was. I don't know, and this is what I'm wondering these days.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the AP course itself, right, they just put Java in there for a high school kid. And when I say we don't teach it right, if you open any computer science book, the first 15 chapters are talking about variables and loops and functions and all of these things which a young kid definitely does not care about. That's not how you should teach. I mean, but programming is a means to end. I love programming. I program in several different languages and several different CPUs. Okay, but the way we teach, where we start introducing this thing to the kids is completely backwards. Okay, we start with variables. So when I was teaching the middle school kids at Girls Who Code Club that we started, I was having a very hard time communicating what a variable is, right? You and me, we have been programming for so long. When we start to write a program, it immediately kind of comes naturally, almost like muscle memory. We declare variables and move on. But for a young kid, they don't care why you need to declare a variable. They are more focused on how do I solve something, right? So the Girls Who Code is a very good program, and I encourage everyone to try and volunteer and also create a club. So communicating variables, communicating loops, you don't know what those are for. So these kids, and that's where I feel all of these people lose interest. So what is, we start with what is the problem that we are trying to solve and how we can break down. Because the algorithm that you use to break down a problem and arrive at a solution and its checklist is so useful, not just in programming, in anything that you do, right? So once you start contrasting that with other real world things will start to click. So one of the things that we did for our, we created a club called Hack Shops. This is my daughter and couple when she was in high school, and she used to run the club. So what we did was we built a small robotic car which was based on Raspberry Pi. And Raspberry Pi is a very capable, computer system, and it comes with this programming environment called Scratch, which is a block-based programming tool, right? So we took that and we started by saying, here's a robot, here's a car, and it has 4 wheels that can, and your job is to make it move, right? So we start with that problem. And then we say, how do you start writing some computer program or whatever? You just drag and drop, right? So the kids are more fascinated in trying to figure out how to make it move. And then we slowly nudge them into getting all the 4 wheels to move by making them copy paste the code. And now we can say, all right, now if you want to do this 4 times or something like that, if you have 20 different wheels, how do you do? And you introduce the concept of a loop, and that will click, right? And then we also had this concept of you just referring to, so when you build this Pi-based robot, you're working with electrical inputs and outputs and then activating motor controllers. So you got to send a pulse to something, right? So which wheel do you send it to? So we again make them copy paste, and pretty soon they're confused. Okay, which wheel am I talking to? And that's where we introduce a concept of a variable saying, hey, look at this. You declare this and you refer to this wheel as being on the left or the right, and that clicks. So that's how we should be teaching all of these things. So any book, for example, you take it starts with variables. Who cares what a variable is when you're trying to understand the ecosystem? And again, I contrast this with how I was when I switched from the .NET ecosystem to Golang, right? I pick a book, variables, I know all of those. So what I'm looking for is concepts. Every language has some unique concepts that are isms of the platform, right? So that's how we should be teaching, is my opinion.
That's interesting what you're saying, because I contrast that with the rest. Not just computer science. We have done homeschool ourselves with our two kids. Just because, in our opinions, my wife and I, there's not enough, I would say, how can I say that? There's not enough real world in schools anymore. So that's a huge problem. Mm-hmm. And they are so focused on, making them pass an exam that it's getting kind of crazy. I mean, this is interesting. So how old are we talking about for those clubs exactly? Is it like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, something like that, or?
Yeah, middle school kids, sixth grade to eighth grade, and that was the focus of the Goal to Code Club. And they do encourage the high school kids as well. The whole concept of Goal to Code is to introduce girls to the world of programming. And it's a very good program. They go through a typical software development lifecycle and things like that. And one of the things that I learned was they think differently, right? So I myself identify as a male, but when you're talking to these girls, right, they're not afraid. I've taught some boys as well, but those guys hold back a little bit. But the girls are really smart, and they're not afraid to ask questions. So yes. That's the thing. And when my daughter was running the club, it was also mainly for middle school kids, young kids.
Yes, yeah, I can understand, and I totally agree. I mean, at this point, it's not time to bother them with variables and what it is exactly. There's yes. computer memory and whatnot. I mean, wow, mm-hmm. They just want to do stuff and fun things.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's like that for almost anything, and there's a way to learn. This is what we have discovered while doing homeschooling ourselves. There's mm-hmm. a way to learn, without having them being, inside four walls or all day long and inside a book. There's other way to learn, but this is a huge topic, to be frank.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of things to talk about. I mean, we divide things as, you shall learn physics and chemistry and biology as three different. But if you look at science, they're all interconnected. And that's the aspect that we need to bring to education, the wonderness of the nature, and then teach them the concepts, right? Biology, physics, or chemistry, they're all interrelated, they're all interspersed, and they're all interacting. So if you take the approach of introduce something and slowly unravel it, kids will really enjoy it. And then on the way, you teach concepts.
Right. Is your daughter a software engineer today?
Oh, no. She's not. She doesn't really like programming.
Yeah. I did a small game with my younger kid, and that was it in Python with Pygame.
Yes.
But yeah, it was enough. It was enough for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, what I was saying was, like you pointed out earlier, right? The education system is geared towards metrics, the tests, and then everybody seems to be rated on these metrics, which is why nobody wants to change anything. So I wrote to the school board, I wrote to the college board, asking them, please take away Java. At least put in Python for these kids where they can understand this better, but they didn't care.
Right. Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, this is something I started to wonder. I would like to start a club like that. I don't know if I have the time and whatnot, but it's something that I think I would really like to do. Maybe a little bit maybe not the introduction, but a little bit later because, for lots of reasons. Since I am a blind person, it's very I don't do drag and drop myself, and since I need to write code, but yes, teaching is very interesting. But I hear you. I mean, it needs to be fun, and they need to build something and play with something very fast without having too much concept. The concept can come later. I'm still learning concept. I've been doing that for more than 20 years now. I mean, I'm still learning.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's still great. I mean, it's nice that those things exist. But yes, if they can be improved, I mean, by all means, it's very good that at least there's some young girls that can be introduced. I thought when you were mentioning that, I thought it was later that there were some issues. I haven't understand correctly what you were saying. It's interesting.
Oh, the issue that I was referring to about this kid dropping off of CS major, that was in the college space.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, going back to that gatekeeping stuff, right? So we put all these kids in one class, and then we expect them all to get A pluses and things like that. But every single person over there has a different brain. Their neural networks are trained differently. They learn differently. We never accommodate for that, right? So we just say, all right, this kid, he's a troublemaker. He always gets D. He's good for nothing, and then we move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a huge thing, to be frank. I mean, this is probably, but on the other side,
yes,
as it is built, this system is not capable of supporting that, and this is sad. This is sad because
correct.
How many people do have dyslexia and all of things. So I mean, this is not a problem when they can learn how they are supposed to be learning, which is, it's interesting. So are you still doing that today, or it was too much discouraging that you kind of stopped?
I kind of stopped, not because it was discouraging or anything, but mainly because I don't have time. I'm actually helping another friend with his startup that he's building, again, in the healthcare space as well. So that has been consuming most of my time. So, and my daughter is off to college, so I don't have somebody who can effectively help me. But I want to get back to it. I have a blog that is dormant at this point. My hope was once all the other tasks get to a stable place, I can start a blog series using that robot that we use for our hack shops, and then slowly. Then this time, I'm going to start using Go and see how we can program this robotic car with Go.
Oh, that's great. So, do you know a couple of packages that do that already? Is the car already exposes some API, or how does it work?
No, good question. No, nothing yet. Things are just mulling around in my brain. I haven't started tinkering. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't done much, embedded development with Go and all of those things. It's mostly web API for me. Sometimes I would like to do something very different, but I mean at the end it's hard to find a project when, exactly like you said, when you don't really have much time. I know how it will be for me. It will be like I will be extremely excited for 1 or 2 days. Then, I mean, the lack of time will just keep up. It's extremely difficult at some point to do things. Do you have some tips? How will you approach that when you feel like you start to have more times? What will be your process?
So I hear you, and I was actually empathizing. Like I think in the previous episode as well, you mentioned how unless you are really doing something as a day job, it's going to be really hard for you to pick something up, right? So, and that's one of the reasons why I picked up this job where I had no previous experience in Go. I had been hearing about Go, wanted to do Go, and No, you just can't do that kind of thing in the evenings, right? Pretty soon, like you said, if you don't have a good project, it just fizzles out. And that's something that happened. So, what I'm hoping is with this focus, again, you need a focus with this robot thing that I'm talking about. I was thinking if I commit myself to writing a series of blog posts on how to use Go and also Tiny Go, right? So that is something that I've never played with, how to use Go or Tiny Go to do some embedded programming or talking to the hardware. That will, the motivation is to try and teach other people and try to address the gaps that I had encountered when learning a new stuff. If I put all of those, then I will be, encouraged to write these series, do some work and things like that. For example, everybody's talking about Rust. Now, I want to learn Rust, but I don't have time. I don't have a project, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult to find motivation. But you asked for a tip. I think one of the tips might be to find somebody young and upcoming who is willing to learn, and then take and try to be a mentor for them. So it kind of forces you to try to teach them and also learn yourself.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, we talked about that last week with Matt. I mean, just getting out there, starting a blog, and trying to be consistent is a good motivation. Everyone wants to learn Rust. I wonder if anyone is doing that at some point, because it's all that I'm hearing. I want to check out Rust. I want to do something in Rust. But yes.
Yes.
It seems to be great. It seems to be a great language, but it's a little bit similar to the .NET framework, though. It seems to be big, not as big, I would say, but it's big enough that you still have to have a lot of energy to just say, oh, you know what, I will jump in. I've bought 2 books so far. I haven't read them.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting.
I think that's probably what the beauty of Go is, keeping it simple, right? So it grounds you back, brings you back to, okay, so let's see what you can solve. Like, what are you going to do now that you have Rust in your belt? So now, is that the new hammer? But right now, Go is the hammer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if it's not too bad for me, because now if a language or tooling is slow or something is I'm like, I cannot do that, and I return to Go because I don't know, things just work and it's fast. But yes. Right. For myself it's Rust. I started Elixir a long time ago. I still like all the Erlang Elixir kind of an ecosystem. This to me, because I'm a web developer. I do web things, so I mean the Elixir is just great. This is something I really enjoy. But again, I mean, yes, it's a huge investment of time that I don't really have at this moment. Right. But I really enjoy learning that. Are you still writing any .NET these days?
Very, very, very minimally. In our current company, we do have a system that is built on .NET. Once in a while, I get called to debug something. And this is an older version of the .NET framework, and it just chews up memory and things like that. So I'm called once in a while.
Interesting.
Yeah, but not anymore.
Yeah, that's great.
Not as a full time. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, do you have anything anything to close the discussion? Anything that we haven't covered yet that you would like to talk about?
The one thing is, if somebody is writing a good book on Go that introduces concept, let me know. I'm still hunting for one. The Ultimate Go Guide by Bill Kennedy's group, that is a good one, but it still talks about variables and loops and things like that, right? And then the Effective Go is a book that I recently picked up, which is a cookbook, a recipe-based style. But again, that assumes a certain level of knowledge, right? So if somebody is writing a introduction to Go from concepts, don't get me wrong, the tour of Go and the documentation is all good. But especially for people coming from a different language, that will be helpful.
Yes. Yeah, this is difficult. I would imagine. I remember when I started go. Yeah. To me, it just happened from one day to another. I think I said that story, but I like it a lot. So I was in a Node backend and having a lot of issues and things like that with callbacks L and whatnot at that point. And I said, you know what? I've heard of that language Go. I think it could be interesting. So I woke up a morning and I rewrote the entire API, the backend API.
Wow.
And it was very, very great. But again, yes, I understand what you're looking for maybe, but if you might want to jump into something, try to do your research a little bit, because you might not have a lot of issues at some point if you follow the standard library. This is always a great tip, to be frank.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But again, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but again, thank you so much for creating this podcast and allowing people like me to come on there. And I hope you find good young talent that can showcase their struggles. And then I really appreciate you creating this podcast, because this helps. I mean, this is a grounded podcast is what I call this, because you share your challenges as well, and you also keep it real. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is very appreciated. Yeah, I mean, I consider myself, as a normal programmer. I just like it a lot. But yes, I have a lot of issues and I have a lot of challenges myself. So yes, I like to talk about that. But yes, if it helps, I will continue for sure. So thank you very much. It was a great talk. We will have some links in the show notes. So if you we will have your blogs. I know that you are listening also to a couple of podcasts. Yes. Scott and Solomon. Let's close the episode with Scott. I mean, for a long time I was listening to his podcast, reading his blog and things like that. He is a great. How can I say that? A great evangelist, maybe for .NET and C#. I think for a long time. I haven't listened to his podcast recently, but it was pretty great at the time. So I imagine it's still very very decent.
Oh, it's absolutely. If you've been listening to Scott Hanselman for a long time, you can contrast and you can see the evolution. What he's doing recently is showcasing so many people from various diverse backgrounds that it is mind-boggling. You wouldn't even imagine people using computing to solve the kinds of problems that the people on his podcast. So I highly encourage you to check out his most recent for the past year and a half. It has evolved. And Hanselman is a great person. And the reason I love him so much is because he has changed a lot of my attitudes from where I was maybe a couple of decades ago to where I am today. My attitude towards people who know less than me, right? And listening to him makes you want to help other people, want to be the better person. So,
yeah, totally. Yeah, maybe I will reach him because I think it's interesting what you're saying, because a lot of people, because I've been more and more public with my visual disability, so I'm a blind person. So
yes,
I've been invited at Go Time to talk about that. But maybe Scott would like to interview me. I don't know. A lot of people are asking about what is my day-to-day, what is the tool I'm using, how do I do things, because I am now a screen reader user full-time since 2 years now. So I mean, it's pretty challenging to be frank at some point. But yes, that will be on the show notes. So I will check that, and I encourage the listeners to even though he's on the .NET side of things, Scott is really. He's a good. How can I say that? A good technical person, if that makes sense.
Yes, he's a good person.
Yeah,
he's a teacher.
That's
he's
better.
A good person. That's what he is. And most of his recent podcasts, they don't talk about .NET and things like that. It's mostly diverse people using computing to solve really interesting problems.
Oh, sounds great.
Yes.
Sounds great.
I'll send him a note. Hey, have Dominic on your podcast.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, because I think there is still a very few. I've spoken with less than 5 other blind developers so far. I'm kind of trying to search them all. I would like to do a podcast episode with a couple of other blind programmers at some point. But yes,
no, that would be really interesting, and I really appreciate that you're putting your voice out there, right? So people have to listen to that, and it's highly motivating, at least for me.
Cool. Well, at least it's very nice to hear, because it's I'm not receiving a lot of feedback and comments, so that sometimes you just see the numbers. There's still pretty nice numbers on this podcast, but nobody is talking to me much. So I'm like, all right. Thank you very much. It was great, and people will reach out to you in the show notes and links and whatnot. So
absolutely, thank you so much again, Dominic, for your time. Really appreciate it, and continue doing the awesome thing that you're doing.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Bye.
All right, that's it for this week. I would really appreciate if you can talk or share about this podcast. It's always helpful. Also, another way to support this show is by purchasing my course. There's always a link in the show notes. So on that, see you next week.